Iblis is according to a spirit made of smokeless fire. If he's not an angel, why did he, disobey the command to bow down to mankind? The command was given to the angels, not to Iblis.
Right.
Which doesn't make sense.
Right. Now, I mean, I've heard some Muslims say, he was an angel, but after he disobeyed, then he became a jinn. That doesn't make no sense.
None at all,
because he tells Allah, hey, you made me from smokeless fire, you made him from clay.
Exactly.
Right? And the command was to the angels. That's like saying, Rico, you're in a room, right? You're in a classroom full of women, and I'm the instructor, and I say, ladies, I want all the women to step outside, and you don't step outside. And then I come to you and I say, Rico, why didn't you go outside? I told you to go outside. You'd be looking at me like, you lost your mind? You said all the women. I'm not a woman. So, yeah, I mean, there are so many problems in the Quran. Okay, I guess I'll use that one. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, they say, you got to read the Quran with an open heart. I'm like, dude, I don't read anything with an open heart. I read using my brain, right? I question everything.
Hey, there's a verse in there where since you're saying that the Quran being from Allah, there's a verse that says that pretty much the message is from Muhammad, or that
you're talking about the verse that says the Quran is the words of a noble messenger?
Yes.
Okay. Now, here's something else that's funny. In the Quran, okay, well, you know how Muslims say that Muhammad was taught the Quran by who? Jibreel, right?
Correct.
But I believe it's chapter 52, and I think it's verse 1 and 2. It says, Allah taught the Quran. So who did Allah teach the Quran? That's a good one for me. Oh, yeah, man. Bro, I got so many of these things that I have a spreadsheet that I've been keeping for 12 years because I've been doing this for 12 years. So I've got all these, I've got all these goodies that I keep track of. And I'm writing books on these topics so people can debate the Muslims. But yeah, let me see. I'm almost sure it's chapter 52, verses 1 and 2. Chapter 2, verse 2. A lot of the translators will lie and it will say this book, but the Arabic actually says that book. There is guidance, meaning it's another book. Yes.
I'm about to see someone wants to come over. Forget Joaquin came.
Okay, well he's got to let us know if they're Muslim, and then Joaquin's going to give me the okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying he came back.
If they're private, then I'll bring him up because I'm the only one that can bring up.
Yeah, he's public.
Okay, he's public, then we'll bring him up. Let me see. Like the Quran also says it is the best tafsir, it is the best hadith. So why do you need to go to the tafsirs? Yeah, so chapter 69:40 says, indeed, it is surely the word of a messenger noble. And then you see the same thing in chapter 81:19. Who is this noble messenger? Right? I think it's chapter 52. Now, notice that some of the things that Allah should really give us some details, He doesn't. But He gives us a lot of details on whose house you can eat. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was wrong. It's not chapter 52. It's chapter 55, 1 and 2. It says, the most gracious, He taught the Quran. Okay. Hey, how's it going? It's not, I can't see the rest.
It's not Polly.
Okay.
It's not Polly.
So how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. What about you?
Can't complain outside of it's freaking cold outside.
Yeah. Right.
So, you got something you want to contribute? You got any questions about the topic?
I just want to know how come. No, I'm just thinking. Are you? What's your religion? I'm assuming.
I'm a Christian.
perfectly fine. Why do you think Christianity is better than Islam? Because for some reason you always believe that.
Well, I'm not here to really discuss that because that's not the topic. Well, Rakim was right. He said he wasn't going to last long. Guys, you see the topic here, so stay on topic. The topic is not why am I a Christian or any of that stuff, right? You've come to the wrong live. I'm not that kind of Christian. I'm a polemist. Now, you want to talk about Muhammad in the Bible? Yeah, you want to make claims that, the Valley of Mecca or Bakka is Mecca? Yeah, I'll entertain that. But other than that, I'm not here to prove that my book is better than your book. I'm here to prove that if you make claims about the Quran, then, can you prove it?
prove with the Quran.
Well, I don't know.
Well, it's been preserved for over 1,400 years.
Sure it has. That's your story.
Okay,
hold on.
it's not holy.
Yeah, go ahead, Rico.
Go. It's not holy. Let me ask you this: if the Quran is well preserved and it's the word of Allah, this is something I asked another brother. If you look up the Arabian pantheon, there is a deity and a god named Allah. So, if the message is clearly from Allah, is it from God or is it from the deity God? Because then that means there's two Allahs.
What do you mean by deity God? I'm just interested in learning about this.
Okay, so you know how you got like the Arabian also have a pantheon as well. One of the deities within that pantheon is Allah, which is by the name of which is by the name of
Well, in the Quran it says Allah is God though. That is the number one.
Okay, your pantheon says Allah is a God as well. So which one is it?
I'm gonna quickly search what pantheon is, just so I know what I'm going into here for. Call. It looks like a castle, like a building. I don't know if I spelled it right. It's Pantheon.
Yeah, so apparently there was a guy named Allah, which simply means the God. It was like the major god, supposedly out of the 360 that supposedly we're told were in the Kaaba.
Correct.
All of this is lies because we don't have any evidence that there was a city called Mecca at that time period. Professor Ahmed Al-Jalad says by the 6th century, people were not practicing paganism anymore. They were practicing a form of monotheism.
By what time?
By the 6th century. As a matter of fact, if you go, yes, 6th century AD.
But don't we have hadiths showing that there were people who were learning
but
about
hold on a second. But your hadiths, the earliest copy of the hadiths that you have is from the 10th century. You don't have any. We don't have anything from the 7th century.
What about the other ones, like Al-Kafi?
I don't know when Al-Kafi, but that's a Shiite source.
It doesn't matter. It's still a hadith.
Well, no, I mean I don't know. I haven't looked into as to when these writers lived and when when the earliest copies, because a lot of times what you have is things that are hundreds of years after the person supposedly wrote them, but there's no originals, right? So these are called attributions or redactions. Like for instance, Sahih Bukhari, the earliest copy that we have of his collection is like from around the 14th, 15th century. Now, Bukhari died in the 9th century. So you're talking about 500, 600 years after the man was dead.
Yeah, but it wasn't like you can also factor in the fact that there was no technology around that time, though, so it wasn't as easier to do things like publish a book around that time as
No,
it is
but
now.
right. But obviously, things were written down, right? That was the whole purpose of Bukhari, was to write down, go through these 600,000 hadiths, which is the story, and he got it down to about, 7,200, 7,300. So it was already written down, supposedly, as the story goes, by his time, but we don't have any, right? It's kind of like the Quran, right? There is no Quran or Mus'haf that goes back to the time of Muhammad or even Abu Bakr, or as a matter of fact, even to Uthman. Right? These are all stories that were told in the hadiths by, Bukhari. He's the one that says Uthman, standardized the Quran, which is a lie. Because we don't have a single, for a guy who made 6 copies and sent these copies to cities that were under Muslim rule, have always been under Muslim rule, not a single one of these copies exists. Why not? I mean, they weren't written in papyrus, so they should have lasted. Also, if we look at Bukhari, the verses of the Quran were written in rocks, stones, the bones of an animal, meaning the shoulder blades.
I mean, we do have the earliest manuscript of the Quran in the Birmingham University.
No, the Birmingham is, as a matter of fact, the Birmingham is not the earliest. The Birmingham is from the 8th century, so the earliest is still the Sanaa manuscript, which is a whole bunch, a collection of a lot of manuscripts, and I think it's only like 44% complete. The earliest.
But then doesn't that also show that the Quran has been way quoted?
Well, what it shows, the Sana is actually 2 Qurans, one underneath and one on top, and they're different. But what it shows is that there was a historical development of this thing called the Quran that took at least 200 years, right? So it's not like the Quran was, revealed to Muhammad in 23 years. That's just the standard Islamic narrative, right? But we can go look at these manuscripts. Go look at the Sanaa. We can see in the manuscripts. Dan Brubaker has a good book on this. It's a very small book. It's only 22 examples. But we can look at these early manuscripts, and you can see somebody later on was putting dots and putting the vowels, because they didn't exist in the 7th century. Those came like 40 to 60 years later. So you're talking
that's
about.
Also because but that's the dots. Are you talking about the Arabic dots that we usually have with an Arabic writing?
Right.
Yeah, but that's also, you can also factor in the fact that the language of Arabic has changed over the course of time. Same way the English that we speak today isn't the same English that people spoke, years ago. It may be very similar.
We're talking about the Quranic Arabic, which supposedly hasn't changed, right? The Fusha. Right, we're not talking about the modern Arabic today. We're talking about the classical, so-called 7th century Arabic, which was is what scholars say a scripto defecto, meaning the Arabic script and the Arabic language was still in the development stages, right? It didn't have all the letters that we have today. Only had 16 letters. Didn't have the dots. Didn't have the vowels. Right? Most people wouldn't even be able to read a early manuscript. So the Birmingham, the material is claimed to have been dated 568 to 645, which in itself would be a problem, because that 71% of the date has nothing to do with Muhammad. But when you look at it from a paleographic standpoint, meaning you look at the material that was used, you look at the writing style, you look at the ornamentals, you look and see if there's any diacriticals, etc. That gives you an idea of what period. And according to Professor Kasami Samaria, who's an expert in paleography, he says the Birmingham is an 8th, 9th century manuscript. So it is not the earliest. And it's only 43 verses.
Yeah, so then, like, what's your point when it comes to, like, can you, like, plead the Quran for your case? Like, why are you, like, an ex-Muslim? Like, what's your, like
No,
whole
I'm not
idea
an
when it comes to it?
No, I've never been I've never been a Muslim.
I used to be ex-Muslim.
Yeah, he was. Rico was an ex-Muslim.
What made you come to Christianity?
For one, I was raised Christian. There were questions that I had, so I went through a spiritual journey looking for stuff. Islam answered some of those questions, but then when I learned some things about Islam, there were some things that made me back away. So for one, like I was explaining to Doc before you were up here earlier, one thing, the Quran. The Quran does not condone slavery, and a lot of and the Arabian slave trade is something that's been going on for 1,400 years, and even still in some Arabian countries, there's still slavery going on. So I cannot sit here and try to defend something that your scripture condones this, but yet even in modern times you're still doing it. So that
Okay.
That to me,
My bad, I'll let you go. I keep interrupting. Go on.
that to me is like me saying that it's like this. The Bible tells me I'm a believer. The Bible tells me not to go kill, but yet I'm still going
gotta
around.
drop you and bring you back up, Rico.
Oh,
You said the K word.
sorry,
Just
I
come
forgot.
I know, and that's why I don't like TikTok. Just come back up.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem, man.
I want to continue my conversation with him. It's pretty interesting what he's saying.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah, unfortunately, TikTok is like walking on eggshells. You got to be very careful what you say. Otherwise, we all get into trouble. All right, let me bring you back up. Okay, welcome back. Yeah, no case, no.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay, man. Listen, it happens to the best of us because I'm not used to this restrictive platform, right? I'm on YouTube, and that was restrictive, but you know what? I can say those words, and I will not get in trouble. But if you say that here, you'll get dinged. I'll get dinged. Let me tell you, I'm already dinged in my other account. So go ahead.
Okay, so brother, let me go back to what I was saying. So say that I'm a believer. I'm one that I'm preaching. My word says this: don't unalive, don't condone in adultery, all this other stuff, right? So this is what I'm preaching. Or I'm a person big in this country where I'm doing this, but yet at the same time I'm going around. I'm unaliving people. I'm doing everything accordingly that goes against what I'm preaching. But yet, I'm sitting here and I'm saying this is what I believe in. But I'm showing a whole contrary to it. So how could I sit here and say, I believe in this. I believe in this, and it resonates with me. But yet, this is going on. It doesn't make sense to me. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
In the Quran, for example, zina being one of them. Zina is basically sexual intercourse before marriage, and it's a very prohibited sin within Islam. And now in the Quran, if it says that and people start doing it, and then that automatically means now that I'm not a believer. Is that what you're trying to say? Because
it's more like
if people do stuff like that, then that's on them, because Allah's gonna judge all of us accordingly to what we did. It's not gonna be he said this or she said this. Like if a whole town. Like if you go to a whole town and they do negative stuff, but then you're the only good person there who's believing in God's wisdom and His laws and what He obviously to create upon us, then that's good for you, and then that's what you're meant to do as a person. Now what you can do is preach to other people and tell them stop doing that. But then if they don't listen, then you can keep on doing it more. But then, like in life, bro, everything does have a limit to it, and it'll come to a point where you'll have to stop preaching, and then that's then and done, because they're not listening. They're ignorant. They don't want to listen to you. But you can't put that blame on yourself that this person did this, meaning that now, or like it's automatically my fault, or that makes me hypocritical in some sort of sense because they are doing this.
I mean, but it does, because you have a lot of people in power. I mean, you have some people that go by, this is what I stand on, but yet they allow it to happen. So
that's human nature, though. Like humans are not perfect, and like I understand where you're kind of coming from. Like the way I look at it is Saudi Arabia, Muslim country, but half the like crap they do is, I mean, I can't really be mentioning on here because I'll end up getting kicked off. But if you know, you know in it. But that's what I'm trying to say. Like, just because they're doing that, Allah's gonna judge everyone accordingly. Like, just because you're a rich person doesn't mean Allah's gonna put you in heaven, and just because you're a poor person doesn't mean you're gonna go to hell. It really is like your character is what matters at the end of the day, and who you are and what you do for society, and just what you do for yourself and for your family and friends. That's what matters. It's not about country. They can say we're a Muslim country, we're a Christian country, but if they don't adhere to, like, behind closed doors, if they start doing a lot of crap, then that's on them. We've seen in the world what it's like. People chase power, they chase money, they chase women, they chase respect. This is just what the world's always going to be until the end of time, unfortunately. But I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, no one's you're gonna find dogs on the planet, you're gonna find good people on the planet.
Fair enough. I mean, I can agree to that statement, but it's still like me being a person that knowing historically what's happened, here and whatnot, and what that how that was a big issue for this country, and then seeing that another walk of life is still practicing to this day. Like, it's hard for me to stand with that. And then if you want me to
the thing is, so I'm a Shia, all right. So I'm still practicing. I don't know. I'm not like a scholar or smart ass when it comes to my religion. I don't really know too much. I'm still learning. But from what I know is that we basically believe that Imam, and a lot of Sunnis believe this as well. But you get that group of Sunnis that have their low belief when it comes to it. But in general, most Muslims believe the fact that Imam Hussein was I don't want to say the word, but yeah. Let's just say KKK, yeah. Can you say unalive instead?
Yes, you can say unalive.
Alive, deceased, passed away, something like that.
Right. So we believe Imam Hussein was basically unalived, all right, from the head, and there was a person called Yazid who basically ordered this to basically happen, and he essentially fought for Islam. So, like with Shiaism, is that we essentially just believe that after the Prophet Muhammad died, a lot of negative stuff took place, and the reason why is because of power and also authority. Like the Shia narrative, Shia and Sunni narrative is completely different. The way the Shia narrative works is that they believe that after the Prophet died, Abu Bakr and Umar essentially wanted allegiance. They wanted the power. They wanted to be in charge and take the leadership. And
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, and obviously, we believe, Ali was given the leadership, but it was, Umar Abu Bakr wanted that power. And then the Sunni is obviously complete opposite. They believe that, I think it's Umar Abu Bakr. Basically, there was 4 caliphs, and until each one had essentially died, another one would take place. So they have more of a nice and calm and cozy story, with ours is more this happened. And it's all just narrative. It's basically, we have hadiths where we have it, but that's pretty much it. It's always, this has been happening since the dawn of time, where people have tried to do negative things within the religion, to try to honor the religion, to try to essentially tear the religion apart, and that's always gonna happen. I don't believe this would happen, but hypothetically, if God came down and sent another prophet, not that it would happen, I'm just saying hypothetically, if God sent another prophet, and that prophet said that this is the new religion, I think the exact same thing would happen. I don't think it would happen straight up. I think eventually people will try to tear the religion apart, because we just have too many evil people on the planet. That's just how the world works. And I mean, we can try and do better. We can try and stop it from happening. But that's just how the world's always going to be, unfortunately, until the end of time.
Right, but it's not. I mean, if that particular, I guess I can't even say the word S. If that was really abolished, right? Then that would mean that just about every single Muslim country disobeyed, the instruction of Muhammad to
Are you
not.
talking about? Yeah, I think you can say the word because I was on live yesterday talking about it with someone. They kept
I
saying
don't know. My mod says no, but I've got a list of all because right now we have 57, so-called Muslim countries. The OIC.
All right.
Okay, and if we look at the dates, just about all of them was, between the 19th and 20th century. Right, so for all these for at least 1,000+ years, right? Depending on like for instance, Qatar, that was not abolished until 1952. You got Bahrain, 1971. You got Oman.
Okay, so do you mean S was not abolished in Qatar till the 19th century? Trying to say basically.
According to this, Qatar didn't abolish it until 1952, so that's 20th century.
Okay.
Every single country that is today Muslim, right, didn't get rid of it, until they were forced, either by by the Western countries like British influence, or by the Soviet influence, like Uzbekistan, 1920, Kazakhstan, 1920, Tajikistan, 1920, Albania, 1912. Even it wasn't until 2007 that Mauritania actually criminalized it. Sudan, 1990, right? And Sudan, there's still forced labor going on there, but that's a different story. So a lot of these, Muslim countries, it wasn't until, the 1800s, which is the 19th century and so forth. Egypt, 1895, even the Ottoman Empire under what's his name, I can't remember what his name was, they didn't abolish it until 1847. So did these people not know you're not supposed to do that? Right? It seems that every Muslim country was practicing this. So they must have gotten that from somebody, from somewhere.
I 100% understand it. Like, obviously, from the outside, if you look at it from that sense, then yeah, it looks bad upon a Muslim. And I'm not going to disagree 100% it does. But that doesn't make sense because now, if you read in the Quran, from chapter 90, verse 11 to chapter 90, verse 13, Allah stated that if only they had, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's basically along the lines of that, if only they had attempted a challenging path of goodness instead, and what will make you realize what attempting the challenging path is it to free a slave, or is it to give food in times of famine to an orphaned relative, or to a poor person in distress?
So my question is then, why did these countries, why did these Muslim rulers, why did they not obey the Quran?
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, just because someone is in power doesn't automatically mean that they are like a better person, or doesn't.
Yeah, but we're not talking about an isolated country or an isolated ruler. We're talking just about every single Muslim country had it up until the 19th century. I could see if it was, 57 countries and only 5 of them did it.
I've always said that like governments are just corrupt in general. Like, no country you go to is going to be 100% perfect to the absolute bottom team. There's always going to be some shady crap going on behind the scenes. Same with America, or UK if you want to call it. These countries, were known to be Christian countries at one point. And look what they're purporting now. Homosexuality.
Whoa! You can't say that again. Right. That has nothing to do with the religion, and I would agree with you. But when we're talking 50-something countries, right? UK is only one country. America technically, but we're talking about 57 that supposedly, because the only reason that these Muslim countries abolished it was because of Christianity and the Western countries. Otherwise, I guarantee you today, if it hadn't been for, the Christians and, for instance, UK and probably America, probably all of these countries would still have it. Hell, Quran, but when did Muhammad actually abolish it? Because
was a lot of slavery around that time as well. From what I know, I'm not like too familiar on the whole slavery topic. It's only like a few things I know about it.
right.
So I do know that that whole situation with Muhammad, but then again, for me, I've always said I'm always going to be way more careful with Hadith compared to Quran because just of how much crap there is in the Hadith. I've never understood the people, and this is a lot with Sunnis, but I'm not saying every Sunni, but I've heard some Sunnis say that just because it's Sahih Bukhari, it automatically makes it authentic, which for no whatsoever, I do not believe that because just the amount of crap there is in that book. There's so much crap. It's actually unbelievable.
All right, what do we got? We got looks like the live man. This week. Well, this.
Can I ask him something though?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, brother, so let me ask you this as well. Another thing what made me leave was as I started doing research and things of the Quran. One thing about the Quran that I see, it mentions a lot, the biggest prophet according to the Quran, or as we call him, Jesus.
Yeah.
A lot of things in there are left a bit misunderstood because if we look at outside of the Quran, you really can't find scriptures unless you're going to use Gnostic texts, which those have been proven to be heretics.
Rico, let me ask you and clarify. When you say he was in what criteria? You said he was the biggest, or by how many times he was mentioned, or?
Yeah, the most mentioned person in the Quran, if I'm not mistaken, is Jesus. He's mentioned more than anybody else.
No, it's actually, believe it or not, it's Moses, what I think 145, 146 times.
Then I stand corrected. Okay. If we go like I was saying, brother. So if we go outside of the Quran, you're not going to find text or information that really, even historically, that says that Jesus wasn't crucified, though the Quran says he wasn't. So then my thing would then be to ask you, could you prove Jesus wasn't crucified outside of the Quran?
Okay, so I haven't done much research on that matter, but I personally just don't. Obviously, reading the Quran, I don't believe in it. If a Christian does believe in it, then they're perfectly obliged to. I'm not going to obviously shit talk them, but that's just my belief. I just don't believe that happened, because I do believe that once Jesus did die, that the scripture was altered and it was essentially also very corrupted, if that makes sense. I know obviously you are going to have your say about the Quran. You're going to say that, this happened and that happened, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. And, to a certain degree, Muslims do say sometimes, say the same thing. I've always believed since day one that the Quran is a very multi-layered book. You're not going to understand it on the first, second, or third go straight away. You'll pick up things from it, but it's not something that's going to just click straight away just because of how much layers is it. That's my belief on it. But with the crucifixions, side of things, that's just, not my belief. Because I think in the Quran, from what I know, when Moses did die, they also grabbed his message and what he was trying to basically preach, like his scriptures and everything. The people after he died, they went back to worshipping idols, and they just said, they never cared anymore for him. They never cared anymore for him. Someone does come and try to give a message, and once they do die, at that point, they're dead. They're not going to come back from the dead all right? And now people are obliged to do whatever they want, and they can take that message and they can actually preserve it, and they can, use that message and spread it to the next generations coming on forward, or they can go and worship idols back to where they were used to, or they can corrupt the message. That's just where I look at it anyways.
Okay, so let me ask you: Is Jesus the Word of God or the Word from God?
I believe the Bible originally, when it first came, it was the Word of God. But I believe Jesus. What I will say about Jesus, or what I believe about him, is I do think he was someone that was someone who could do miracles. Obviously, on the behalf of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, I do believe he was able. I'll say this probably. He basically was allowed to do it but on the behalf of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, Allah allowed him to do miracles. And I think the way I've looked at it is around that time, I'm not sure if there was any stories of people apart from Jesus who were doing this many miracles. So they must have looked at him and be like, oh, he has to be God, because who can do miracles like this? Who can do things like this? And once Jesus died, I do believe that his message was corrupted and people started saying that he is God, he is God, he is God. That's just the way I, at the moment, as a writer, look at it, that they must have thought that he was God. And so they made up a whole story around it, that he's God and this happened and that happened.
It's not. Where is your evidence of any of that? Because the Quran requires or asks me to validate that Muhammad or the unlettered prophet is written in the Torah and the Injil.
All right.
So if it's corrupted or been changed, which you can't prove it, scholars can't prove it because we don't have the original. So we can't say that was changed and that was not changed. All we can say is that, okay, the majority of manuscripts that we have it, this pile doesn't have. That's it. But that's not a corruption. What exactly has been corrupted? Because they all say the same thing. All right.
Well, then for me, we're looking at like, why was it never preserved, and why was it not preserved the way the Quran was preserved?
You say the Quran. Hold on a second. How is the Quran preserved? Can you show me the original Quran?
It is regarded as one of the most is considered to be up to.
No. I'm not buying the stories that you've been fed. Okay, because I've
you don't have to buy it. It's just my belief at the end of the day. That's it.
Right. But I, as a researcher, I don't accept opinions. I don't accept feelings. I don't accept.
But that's how we would work.
Because one of the claims that Muslims always like to throw in our face, the Quran's been perfectly preserved.
I'm not throwing any face. I've come here.
No, not you, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not pointing out to you personally, but I'm just saying that is one of the claims that Muslims make. Whether you make it or not, well, I believe from the Shiite point, the Shiites don't believe that the Quran that we have today is the correct one, because if you read Al-Kafi, he says Muhammad was given 17,000 verses. So what happened to about 11,000 verses? Where'd they go?
Like I've already mentioned, I believe that it is preserved, but
But preserved
yes,
how?
I agree.
How is it preserved? And we Allah say that he will preserve the Quran.
Well, since you've done more research than me, can you find me a book that was way more preserved than the Quran?
When you say preserved, how?
What is regarded as one of the most preserved books in history.
Okay, again, you keep saying preserved. Preserved how? Do we have an original? Because the earliest Quran that we have, that's almost complete, it's like 99%, is the Tob copy, which is an 8th century Mus'haf, and it's got over 2,200 differences between the Quran that Muslims read today. If you look at all your early manuscripts, by the Egyptians. So when you say preserved, and when Muslims say, well, it's been preserved by memory, I can't verify memory. Without a written text, there's no way to verify what has been memorized is actually, and memory has been shown by science that you cannot fully preserve, especially word for word, you can't preserve using memory because memory is flawed. What ends up happening is the Chinese whispers, right? By the time it goes down the line, it's completely different. So you can't rely on memorization, even if it's claimed to be memorized by millions of people. The people today that supposedly memorize the Quran, they're all memorizing the Hafs. They're not memorizing the Warsh, the Dudi, the Kalun, the Asim, the Nafi, right? So again, when you say perfectly preserved, diacritical marks, that's an invention by humans. The names of the surahs, that's an invention by humans. The verse separation, that's an invention by humans. And let me tell you, it applies to the Bible. If you look at the early manuscripts, there's no chapter names, there's no verse numbers. That was all done later by scholars to make it easy for you to read. These people would just get a scroll and they would just start writing. There was no Isaiah book 1, Isaiah book 2. No, that came much later, based on scholars and based on the text. So when you say perfectly preserved, I don't understand. What was perfectly preserved?
Okay, so when it comes to the namings, when you say that that people named like each, did you mean like people named each chapter of the Quran you're trying to say in it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand, like, what's wrong with that? Why?
Well, then it's not perfectly preserved, right? That's an addition, right?
Well, yeah, but you're naming a chapter. You're not naming a verse.
It doesn't matter, but you're changing something, right? The diacritical marks. The diacritical marks is what gets you guys in trouble today. That's why you have differences between the Hafs and the Warsh. It's not in the consonantal. Actually, we do have manuscripts that have consonantal differences between that manuscript and let's say the Hafs, the 1924 that you're reading. So again, I don't understand. First of all, there's no reason as to why the Quran couldn't have been perfectly preserved, right? Because it wasn't written on papyrus, written in rocks. Where are all these rocks with the inscriptions, with the verses from the Quran? Where are all these animal shoulder blades with the inscriptions of the Quran? How come we don't have those? How do you destroy inscriptions on rocks? I mean, you can't burn them. Not that I know of.
No. Same way they probably destroyed idols back in the days, from what I know.
So yes, so these so-called Muslims, they took a sledgehammer and they went around and just destroyed all of the so-called Quran verses that were written down that supposedly came directly to Muhammad from Jibreel. Why would you destroy the verses that were written down?
Well, does it say anywhere, like in the Hadith, the Quran was written on rocks?
Yes, Sahih Bukhari. When Abu Bakr got Zayd bin Thabit to compile the Quran, it says he went around collecting the stones, the animal shoulders, the leaves, and the skins. Now, the leaves and the skins, yes, you can burn those, but the rocks and the animal shoulders, five different locations because he kept one supposedly for himself. Right? None of these locations have ever been not under Muslim control. So how come we don't have a mushaf from Uthman?
Well, have you ever heard anything about Ali ibn Abi Talib? About his century role about the...
Well, my understanding, his Quran was actually in the order that it was revealed, meaning his Quran started with chapter 96, the chapter of the clots, and it ended with chapter 5, which is the chapter that says, "Today I have perfected your religion, Islam." Now, again, we can't prove this. These are all written hundreds of years later, and said that Ibn Masud and Ubay Kab, they had different mushafs. One had 111 chapters, the other one had 116. So if these were perfectly supposedly memorized, and these were two of the guys that Muhammad said, if you want to learn the Quran, learn from these four guys. I think it was Ubay Kab, Ibn Masud, Salim, the freed slave, and I can't remember the fourth guy. None of these guys.
By the way, I was going to say something. I have you know that I don't believe that everyone around the Prophet's time were, like the most amazing people. Like obviously the Prophet in itself, like I believe, was a good, like pure soul. I know everyone's got different opinions, but I think the people around the Prophet, completely different story though. I do think these people there was people who had different motives and different intentions, and then we had people that who obviously didn't. And I'm not just saying that because,
right. Well, I mean, if you look at it, Islam went through a lot of hands, right? It went through a lot of rulers. You had the Umayyads, you had the Abbasids, and the Abbasids didn't like the Umayyads. Then after the Umayyads, you had the Fatimas and so forth. So you had all these different caliphates. Every ruler probably had something to do, with the hadiths, with the even with the Quran itself, right? They changed things for political reasons.
Yeah.
I don't believe there was a prophet Muhammad in the early 7th century.
No, I mean,
I don't believe there was an Abu Bakr, an Umar, an Uthman, or even an Ali. At least not from the early 7th century, and not from Mecca or Medina, because we don't have any evidence for a Mecca. There's no maps with a city called Mecca. There's no archaeology to support that there was ever, a city in Mecca in the 7th century or before it. There's no historical writings about a city that was supposedly on a major trade route. That was one of the things that Patricia Crone debunked, right? She couldn't find any historical writings, maps, anything. So I believe that Islam actually started under the Umayyads. I would say it probably got its first start under Abdul Malik.
From what I know, I think from what I know, though, there wasn't any technology around that time, so they didn't. Could be inaccurate, I'm not sure, but they didn't know what a full 1 year was. If that makes sense. So for them, from I heard.
Come on, man. You're making these people as if they were ignorant, uneducated, right? Didn't know anything, right?
No, I'm not saying they were uneducated, but there wasn't enough around that time. If that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, well, I mean, again, history is showing that things got started under the Umayyads, and we know that the Umayyads were heretical Christians and heretical Jews based on the inscriptions that we have, and also based on the coins. We have coins from Muawi with crosses on them, right? Not something that a Muslim would do. We have coins from the time of Abdul Malik with the Shahada on one side and the Jewish menorah. Now, again, that's not something that a Muslim ruler would do, right? So these guys lived in the area, which is the Arabia Petraea, which includes Jordan, Palestine, Syria, parts of Iraq. And in that area, you had heretical Christians, you had Jews, you had a big following of Zoroastrianism because the Persian Empire, that was their religion. So you had a monotheistic religion. The Zoroastrians believed in one God, right? So you can consider them to be probably one of the